Hey everybody, this is Stitch 1993 with another listicle. This month is my birthday. I'll be turning 31. And I thought, hey, why not look back in the last 30 years of animation and films. And we have a special guest. By the time this comes out, we've done a couple videos, so I think some of y'all know. But it's my wife.
Hi, everybody.
So she was originally just kind of helping me make my list, but then we would come to some years and have some disagreements on what I thought was the best film of that year as far as animated feature films goes. So she decided she wanted to do her own list, and so it's going to be two lists. So you get two for the price of one today. So it's two top animated films of the last 30 years. So this goes from 1993 to 2023. And we'll start off with me, and then I'll go with my choice. And if it's the same choice, Shelby will just give her thoughts on it, or if she has something different, she'll give her choice as well. So 1993, starting off, we didn't have much. Looking back here, it looks like we've got stuff like the Halloween Tree and a Yabba Dabba Doo and Once Upon a Forest. So for 1993, the choice for both of us is going to be Nightmare Before Christmas. There isn't really much that I can say that not everybody else on the internet and just film reviewers in general have said. You know, it's perfect film to get you into either the Halloween or the Christmas mood, or from transferring from one to the other. I'm not going to have a lot to say on this one. It still holds up well 30 plus years later animation wise, which some films really can't say that as we move forward here. But yeah, did you have anything else to add on this one?
Well, with us having just turned 30 last year, this movie, one, is as old as us, and two, when we hit high school, everyone was obsessed with Nightmare Before Christmas. No matter where you went, somebody had something Nightmare Before Christmas, or they were drawing Jack Skellington, or they were dressing up as Sally for something. It was a huge deal. So it's just kind of a culture thing at this point for younger millennials and early Gen Z to be completely into Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, I will say part of what spiked that was just, the kids that were like toddlers and babies when the movie came out, getting to the teenage years, and this was kind of just happened to be the type of art style that a lot of teenagers were getting into the type of emo, dark, shadowy figures, really skinny looking creatures and stuff. So it kind of helped and kind of aged gracefully for that. Disney also, at around this time, because I remember for a couple years in a row around Halloween and November, December time, they re-released this film in theaters with the Real D 3D effect there, which the movie was not made for, but just happens to really work it for that film, at least with the Real D 3D effect. So that's how I first saw the film in its entirety, was the 3D version of the film there. I did see it once before at like a daycare when I was like 4 or 5, and I got terrified at the intro with the creature talking under the stairs. So I didn't make it further than that. I don't know, how did you find out about this film or see it?
I honestly don't remember ever actually being introduced to it. It was just always there. For me, it's on the same level as like Aladdin and Beauty and the Beast. There was not a time in my life where I don't remember knowing what this movie was.
Fair enough. 1994, so we get a bit more movies. We've got A Troll in Central Park. We've got The Lion King, The Page Master, Pocahontas, The Return of Jafar, The Secret Garden, Street Fighter 2, the movie, The Swan Princess, and Thumbelina, just to name a few. So for my pick, I go with The Page Master. I know it's probably not everybody's pick, as we'll soon learn. I just, I really enjoy just the adventure and the story of this one a bit more. Some of the other films I didn't even see until I was much older, so I don't have nostalgic for, whereas I do have nostalgia for this one. Macaulay Culkin, of course, is great in this. This was after Home Alone, so he is a bit older, and of course the animation is I wouldn't say decent. It's not amazing, but it is decent, and it's still watchable to this day. Shelby has the pick that probably most of you have thoughts on.
It's The Lion King. You can't think of a 90s animated movie without thinking of The Lion King. It's another one that I don't remember ever having to be introduced to. It was just always there. And I don't know if it was me or one of my little brothers, but one of us had the bed set, the like funky 90s patterned, really busy bed set with like child Simba all over it. But yeah, we had pretty much anything Lion King we could get our hands on. We loved it. It was my first introduction to Elton John and his music, and I've been a fan ever since.
So moving forward into 1995, we've got quite a number of animated movies came out that year. So just to name a few of the highlights, we had Balto, we had Gumby the movie, Gargoyles the movie, Ghost in the Shell, a Goofy movie, The Pebble and the Penguin, one of the Sailor Moon films, Sailor Moon S, and of course Whisper of the Heart. But my pick, and I think it's both of our picks, it's going to be...
Toy Story.
Yeah, it's Toy Story. If you guys on my channel, you know that I'm a big Toy Story fan, and I've done quite a number of reviews of some of the more interesting toys. And of course, because of Toy Story, I think that's also where my love of the Potato Heads series got introduced to, and you've seen that I've had a whole bunch of Potato Head toy reviews. I will say this, I learned this just recently when I got, they re-released the movie as a part of Disney's 100th anniversary collection of films. I don't know if it's just my DVD player or it was however they made the disc, but Toy Story 1 does not look good on a Blu-ray. I don't think it was made with Blu-ray in mind because, it's CGI, so I believe they were hoping to some of the features wouldn't be so seen as compared to watching it on just a regular standard definition DVD or of course VHS. Again, that might have just been my copy, but I don't think Toy Story was meant to be seen, at least the first one, in high definition. Give some of your own thoughts on it.
So, Toy Story for me growing up, it was something I watched with my brothers. I have more thoughts on the second one because that's my personal favorite of the movies. But I do remember really enjoying watching the first one, sitting down. We were siblings that were all real close together in age, so we were constantly fighting about something. But we could pretty much always get along when it came to Toy Story. We knew we were gonna, sit down, shut up, have a movie marathon, and just enjoy our time. I do remember, and it's still to this day, not liking Woody as a character. Everyone else I can enjoy, but Woody annoys me.
Which was interesting, because growing up, Woody was my favorite, but then, later films came out and Buzz became my favorite. And now I think I collect, for the Toy Story toys, at least more Buzz Lightyear stuff than really any of the characters outside, of course, Potato Head, but that's he was kind of before this movie. So going into 1996, this was another decent year for movies. We had Aladdin, the King of Thieves, All Dogs Go to Heaven, 2, Beavis and Butthead Do America, How the Toys Save Christmas, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, James and the Giant Peach, and I guess technically Space Jam. But again, this is going to be one of the years we both agree on the same movie here. So Hunchback of Notre Dame is just probably the darkest Disney movie, at least for the Disney Renaissance era. The animation holds up extremely well. The songs are probably as much as everybody likes to harp on The Lion King, I feel like Hunchback of Notre Dame is the strongest out of all the soundtracks for that era. Even with songs like A Guy Like You, I don't mind it as much as some people, I guess, got annoyed at it. Doesn't really take away from the rest of the... It's the only, non-serious part in the film to kind of, give it a little bit of light, because good Lord, does this get into some really dark subjects. I know this is your favorite film as well for that era, I guess.
It is my favorite Disney Renaissance film. It's one of my favorite Disney movies overall. I think it's like my third favorite Disney movie in existence. I love the soundtrack. Frollo is terrifying for me. He is the most terrifying Disney villain for me because he's so realistic. Like, you will see people like that in existence. He's not some over-the-top character. He's not an Ursula. He's not a Dr. Facilier. He's realistic, and it terrified me then. It terrifies me now. Hellfire still gives me chills.
All right, so moving into 1997, we've got, just listing them off here, we've got Anastasia, Annabelle's Wish, Beauty and the Beast, The Enchanted Christmas, Cats Don't Dance, The Dog of Flanders, both a Droids and a Ewoks film from their television shows of the same name, Hercules, Mighty Ducks the movie, Perfect Blue, Pooh's Grand Adventure, The Search for Christopher Robin, Princess Mononoke, and The Swan Princess Escape from Castle Mountain. This is one that we differ on thoughts here. So if you haven't seen my list for the top 10 underrated animated films, this film is also discussed there, but I am going to just say it again here. For me, it is Cats Don't Dance. I really like the musical numbers and just the story in general. It did fly really under the radar because, as you see, a lot of good films came out that year, so I don't think there was much of or any advertisement for this film compared to all the other films that came out this year. I don't even think it even got any toys based on it. When I did some research on it for the other list, I think the closest thing I could find was, I believe there was some back when Subway did Happy Meals, there was like 4 Cats Don't Dance toys from Subway, which I don't think anybody was even in the 90s knew Subway had those. I still really like the villain. I really like the butler. It's just, and of course, the dance numbers, I guess the music, are kind of assisted by Fred Astaire of all people, which was just crazy to think he was still around in the 90s helping out with something like this. And it definitely shows with the fluid of the movement of the characters, especially when they're dancing. However, Shelby has a different choice here.
So my favorite movie from that year, this is also my favorite movie of all time. I watch it multiple times a year. We watch it every Christmas Eve, which to some people won't make sense, but to me it does. It's Anastasia. I've grown up with this movie. I remember having the one coloring book that was ever made of it. I had multiple different copies of the movie because I would watch it so often I would wear it out. I had the dolls. I had one little dress that I would wear for like dress up days at school because it reminded me of her blue dress when she goes to the opera. I was obsessed with this movie when I was little and still am a little bit today. I enjoy pretty much anything that is related to this movie. It got me really into that era of history, so I learned way too early in my life what actually happened to the family. I think it was 10 when my elementary school librarian went, "Oh yeah, sure, you can learn about what actually happened to them. You're old enough for that." Cried for weeks after that. I have the soundtrack for the Broadway show of it. That's absolutely gorgeous.
And just recently for Christmas, you now have a copy of the script signed by both the directors.
I do. I was really excited about that. You got me a reproduction of the Music Box one year, and I cried when I opened that. We've gone to see the stage show. It's my favorite thing in the world. It's my Toy Story when it comes to movies.
And I will say, I do enjoy Anastasia. Don't get me wrong. It's not like, we just have differing opinions on what is, the best film for that year. I like In the Dark of the Night, and sometimes I'll get some of the other songs stuck in my head, but In the Dark of the Night is like the only one I have on like my playlist that I listen to when I'm out walking. The animation, for the most part, is fine. I do see where the meme is, where Don Bluth really only knew how to draw two dudes. And then, of course, it's got the rotoscoping, which just always looks weird, for me at least, no matter who's doing it. But I know Don Bluth really liked doing that type of animation style. I guess it just kind of helped. It is considered, a classic, and, now that Disney now owns the rights to the film, because it was a Fox animated film there, I do hope that we get, a bit more publicity, either with more toys or a re-release of either the original movie or the Broadway in theaters would be great. But those are just my thoughts on that film. All right, so 1998 was a really big film, really big year for film, at least for animation. So we got An All Dogs Christmas Carol, we got Ants, we got Bugs Life, we got The Brave Little Toaster Goes to Mars, we got Galaxy Express 999 Eternal Fantasy, we got Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, Mulan, Pocahontas 2, Journey to a New World, the Rugrats movie, Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. But of course, for this year, it's going to be both of our choices. Prince of Egypt, DreamWorks' probably best film they've ever made, ever, in my opinion. Animation is phenomenal. Songs are not only earwormy, but also very heartfelt and just very powerful throughout the entire film. Voice casting was pretty interesting. I believe they tried to get a mostly Jewish cast to voice pretty much every character in the film. I think, in my opinion, probably the best story of Exodus of Moses and getting the slaves out of Egypt. And I really wish DreamWorks would go back and do another big, giant, biblical, epic film. I know they've found, their niche, I guess, now. But, especially with nowadays, with studios now starting to get out of their comfort zone and do different type of animation styles and tell stories that, 10, 20 years ago really wouldn't be told. I feel like this would probably be the best time for DreamWorks to try to jump in that pool once more.
So Prince of Egypt is also my favorite DreamWorks movie ever made. It's right up there soundtrack wise with Hunchback of Notre Dame for me. Every song in it is amazing. I was a choir kid in school, and we actually did When You Believe, and we had the most adorable little girl doing part like right in the middle of the song where the little girl comes up and starts, and it's so pretty. It was one of my favorite movies growing up. It's still one of my favorite movies. I still find myself just gravitating to that soundtrack. Weirdly enough, we watched it more at Thanksgiving than when the time of the year the movie actually takes place.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was our Thanksgiving movie, but I remember watching it a lot. I think it's because it was interesting enough for all four of us that my mom could put it on and go take care of Thanksgiving dinner and not have to worry about us bothering her. So it became like a yearly tradition to watch this movie until we got old enough where we didn't need supervision.
Alright, so 1999 was probably the biggest year of film just in general, at least for our time. So many films came out, not only in animation, but live action as well. I'm going to try to name as many of these just to show how big of a year this was for 1999. So these are in alphabetical order for the most part. So we got Alvin the Chipmunks Meet Frankenstein, Babar the King of the Elephants, Bartok the Magnificent, Batman Beyond the movie, Dexter's Laboratory, Ego Trip, Donkey Kong Country, The Legend of the Crystal Coconut, Doug's first movie, Fantasia 2000, The Iron Giant, The King and I, Mickey's Once Upon a Christmas, The Nuttiest Nutcracker, All of the Other Reindeer, Pokemon the Movie 2000, Puss in Boots, Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, Tarzan, Toy Story 2, Wacko's Wish, and Winnie the Pooh Seasons of Giving. So, yeah, that's a lot of films. So it was a bit hard for me personally to narrow down which film I thought was the best. And it ended up being just because I watched it a lot growing up. The animation is great. It's kind of a timeless story. I feel like it's going to be The Iron Giant for me. As you just saw, a whole bunch of great movies came out. This one just kind of puts it just a little over the top there for me because the design of the robot is probably one of the coolest designs we've ever had for a robot. Of course, it kind of helps that this guy's like 20 feet tall, and it's a very interesting story. Like we've had stories in the past with a boy and the robot, but usually it's like the robot is fighting, a giant monster or something, whereas really this is just kind of the boy trying to teach the robot, and the robot in hand teaching the boy just, not really a slice of life, but just a much more smaller type of story there. It did kind of help with me. Of course, I have nostalgia for it because I grew up with it, but then I also was able to introduce this film to my nephew at a young age, and we watched it 3 times in one day because he got so much into it. And then, of course, the toy came out a little bit later, so I was able to get that for him for one of his birthdays. And it's such a cool toy. I bought a couple of them for people over the years. I know it's different for you and probably for a lot of people, but
Okay, don't get me wrong, Iron Giant is great. But for Jessie alone, Toy Story 2 is my favorite movie of the year. It's my favorite of the Toy Story movies, period. I love Jessie. She's one of my favorite characters in that series. For me, this one, because it wasn't so focused on just the conflict between Woody and Buzz like the first one was, you had other toys being affected by Woody's actions. Like, Woody wanted to do what Woody wanted to do, basically, and he's seeing how he has to stop and think how this is affecting the new friends that he's making. He's having to actually take a step back, and you see a little bit of character growth with him, and I actually kind of like him in this one because he doesn't make the decision to go back to Andy initially. He makes the decision to do what the other toys wanted him to do. It's not until, you get the reveal that Stinky Pete's actually a villain and is trying to mess up what they could have because he doesn't want to be played with. He wants to stay in his box. Whereas, Jessie remembers having a person. She remembers having a kid. She just doesn't want to get left behind again, so she's scared. And he has to kind of help her through that. And it's kind of taps into that fear of abandonment pretty much everybody has, which really ties me in with Jessie.
Alright, so 2000. This was another year that had some pretty decent films under its belt. We got Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, The Adventure Begins, Chicken Run, Digimon the Movie, Dinosaur, Heavy Metal 2000, Joseph King of Dreams, Little Mermaid 2, Return to the Sea, Pokemon 3 the Movie, The Road to El Dorado, Rugrats in Paris, Scooby-Doo and the Alien Invaders, The Tangerine Bear, The Tigger Movie, Titan AE. So it's going to be, again, this is more nostalgia because I did grow up with this film a lot. I probably could, if I watched it today, could quote it from beginning to end. And it's probably the best film in this series of films released. It's going to be the Tigger movie for me. So this is kind of what you were talking about with Jessie and the Fear of Abandonment. Tigger this is all because it's the Tigger movie. So it's about Tigger trying to find his family or find out where he's from, which I always found interesting because I'm like, don't they know they're stuffed animals? So if there are others of them out there, they're probably just going to look like Tigger or like anybody else. But, the family that you have usually is not the family that you're born with, I guess, is what I always took away from this film. It doesn't have some of the most original songs. Most of these songs were from way back in the, I believe, 60s and 70s. So just redone for this movie here. I know this is where we differ again for 2000. So yours is going to be
The Emperor's New Groove. For similar reasons of you with the Tigger movie, I grew up on it. I can probably quote it for line if I'm watching it. I still will sometimes randomly quote the movie, especially the waterfall scene. I remember just having so much fun with this movie. Anytime we were just hanging out, if something like went slightly wrong, somebody somewhere would go, "You threw off my groove." For absolutely no reason other than everyone I knew grew up on this movie. Everybody enjoyed this movie. It was just a lot of fun. It was when Disney started to get a little wacky with their movies, which I enjoyed until, a little bit later on the wackiness just got bad.
Alright, 2001. So we had films like Atlantis, The Lost Empire, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius, Lady and the Tramp 2, Scam's Adventure, Little Bear the Movie, Mickey's Magical Christmas, Snowed In at the House of Mouse,
Oh, man.
Monsters Inc., Osmosis Jones, Pokemon Forever, Recess School's Out, Scooby-Doo and the Cyber Chase, Shrek, Spirited Away, The Trumpet of the Swan, and my pick, of course, is going to have to be Spirited Away. Probably what is considered one of, if not the best, Studio Ghibli, Hayao Miyazaki film. Of course, like I'm saying with a lot of these, fantastic animation, fantastic voice acting, whether you're watching the dubbed or the subbed version of the film. I grew up with the dubbed version, so I own the dubbed version. Later on, they would do a stage play of the film, and that was really cool as well, just seeing that in live action there. The characters are all very interesting, the creatures are all very interesting to look at, and but just a really nice story overall.
So mine is Atlantis, and don't get me wrong, I love Spirited Away. It is the stronger movie, but I had to go with Atlantis because it's my favorite out of the two. I remember really being into the art style of the movie. I really liked the machine designs. It had some of the more interesting characters for me. I really enjoyed Kita and the little mole guy. I thought he was hilarious when I was little. The one who's blowing everything up made me crack up every time. I also remember the second one coming out, and it was supposed to be the start of a show, and that's just kind of a guilty pleasure enjoyment for me, is the second movie that was supposed to be a show.
So 2002, we had a couple of interesting ones I'll point out here. We had 8 Crazy Nights, Hey Arnold the Movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame 2, The Secret of the Bell, Ice Age, Jonah, A VeggieTales Movie, Lilo and Stitch, Mickey's House of Villains, Pokemon Heroes, the Powerpuff Girls movie, Peter Pan 2, Return to Neverland, Roly Poly Oly, The Great Defender of Fun, Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, Tarzan and Jane, Treasure Planet, the Wild Thornberrys movie, and Winnie the Pooh, A Very Merry Christmas. So for me, I mean, I even have a shirt of this, so you know it's gotta be one of my favorite films, is Treasure Planet. I really enjoy the Treasure Island story in general. It's just a nice adventure. I think it was probably, at least for me, if probably not a lot of people, the first adventure story you're introduced to book-wise. And the way that they put a twist on this by making it sci-fi, so all these characters like Long John Silver and Jim Hawkins, Ben, I love the direction that they took with giving them these robotic features or alien features. The art style is really cool. I would say probably the coolest looking Disney animated feature film they ever made. And even the toys were really cool. I really remember the Happy Meal toys being, you would get one figure for each toy, but the stand that it came with was part of the actual treasure map. So when you put it all together, it made the giant orb that is featured in the film. And I believe it even, part of it is you can press a light and it would glow. And I remember, I think either McDonald's or Kellogg's was providing a disc demos, so I was able to play some of the video game as a demo from one of those. So it was just overall, just that year for me was the Treasure Planet year.
Okay, I've got what's probably the more popular choice, which is Lilo and Stitch. I absolutely love this movie. I kind of have a similar story to Lilo and Stitch that he has with Iron Giant. It is one of my favorite movies. It's also my go-to whenever the niece and the three nephews are visiting to kind of put on. It's always a crowd pleaser. Everybody always has fun watching it. I'll either put one of the movies on or I'll put the show on and just have fun watching the little kids get so excited by all the little cousins. I collect so much Stitch stuff. I actually also have the big Stitch onesie that I've worn for Halloween because, it's cozy and it was cold out. It's one of my favorite movies. The storyline itself still makes me cry to this day when we get to the middle of it and you've got, Lilo's having her conflict with Stitch and Stitch runs away and you have that, moment where he says, "I'm lost," and it's just, it's so sad. And finding out what happened to Lilo and Nani's parents and why Nani's having to take care of Lilo also always gets me. And the fact that the human side of the story, what's supposed to be the villain, is really just someone trying to do their job and giving Nani all this grace and all these chances to step up. And she's trying to step up, but Lilo's a very spirited little girl who wants to get into all this trouble, and since she's so little, she doesn't fully understand why she can't just go do what she wants to do and why she has to behave a certain way. And Nani, since she's only a teen, doesn't know how to communicate that to her because it wasn't that long ago that she was little. She still kind of has that kid brain herself of, well, I just want to live, but now I'm responsible for this whole human that I didn't sign up to take care of, but now I have to. And it's just really emotional for me. And it's got some of the funniest scenes Disney's ever put out on top of it. So you've got the scenes that absolutely gut you and just make you want to break down in tears. And then right after, you're cracking up over something that Jumbo Pleakley did, or Stitch being his weird little fuzzy self. And it's just so much fun.
Right. 2003 had a good bit of notable films. We had 101 Dalmatians 2, Patch's London Adventure, The Animatrix, Atlantis, Milo's Return, Bionicle, Mask of Light, Brother Bear, Charlotte's Web 2, Wilbur's Great Adventure, Finding Nemo, Interstellar 5555, The Story of the Secret Star System, I Want a Dog for Christmas, Charlie Brown, The Jungle Book 2, Looney Tunes Back in Action, Piglet's Big Movie, Pokemon Jirachi Witchmaker, Recess Taking the 5th Grade, Rugrats Go Wild, Sinbad Legend of the Seven Seas, Stitch the movie, Tokyo Godfathers, and the Triplets of Belleville. This was a very easy choice though for both of us. So it's going to be Finding Nemo. Oh, I remember seeing this film twice in 2003. So I saw it the first time. I believe this came out around the weekend of my birthday, and my uncle was down there. So we, me, my mom, my sister, and my uncle all went and saw this together, I believe at our Dollar Theater. And then at that time when we first saw it, my dad was overseas because of the military, but when he came back, we then saw it again at the military theater. And was really funny is we had to stay in line twice for that film because it was so popular of a film. I don't think some of you younger viewers know just how big of a film Finding Nemo was. It was so popular of a film that there was a line going around the corner and down the road for the military theater that we got right up to the entrance of the theater before they said they ran out of tickets. So we had to come back the next day, and it was still a long line. But thankfully we got there early enough to where we were able to get a ticket. But it was packed every time we went to see this film. I believe this is the highest grossing film to ever release on DVD. This was like right when DVD was starting to get cheap enough for anybody could afford it. So this story was great because it's you got two stories. You got the kid learning that sometimes when a parent says something is a bit too dangerous, it really is, and he has to pay for it, but he does learn some life lessons along the way. And it's more so Marlon's story about how to not be such a worry ward. Nowadays they're called helicopter parents. So growing up in that type of lifestyle, I did really feel with Nemo. Of course, Nemo, the reason Marlon has such an issue with Nemo really doing anything is because of the trauma he had to deal with before Nemo was a school-age child, and of course then because of that Nemo then had technically a health issue. So I really took that to heart because my parents were the same way, mainly because I was born with a health issue that would affect what I was able to do as opposed to what other kids were able to do. And by how much I love this film, like this was the Nemo's Egg song, you can look it up here on YouTube, was a song I did walk down to at my wedding, and I believe it's your favorite film for the year as well.
It really is. I remember seeing it for the first time with my grandparents. I think I was just sitting in their hotel room. They'd brought either a DVD player with them or like a little portable DVD player with them, and we watched the whole movie, and little me was sad because I thought that they were going to take the DVD back home with them, and they were like, no, this is going home with you, and since we just wanted to go ahead and let you watch it, and then you can go show it to your brothers. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. Took it back home with me, ended up watching it with the boys. I still loved it. I don't know how they felt about it because we didn't talk about it. I just sat there and enjoyed watching the little fishies. I think Dory was my favorite then. She's still my favorite now. It's another one of those movies that just kind of became a random quote that would come out all the time, is the P. Sherman 42 Wallaby Way, Sydney, would just come out of people's mouths at the most random, uncalled for moments. They're literally just a random quiet moment and someone would just start quoting Finding Nemo for no reason. It was that big of a deal. Just everybody knew all the lines to it. There was one time that we were having like fish sticks in school or something, and somebody at my lunch table went, "Fish are friends, not food." It was just one of those movies that the lines were so earwormy that you just unconsciously remembered half the script.
So 2004 had a couple of films that I'm going to say were pretty notable. We had Appleseed, Bionicle 2, Legends of Metro Nui, Home on the Range, The Incredibles, The Lion King 1.5, Mickey, Donald, Goofy, The Three Musketeers, Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas, Pinocchio 3000, Pokemon Destiny Deoxys, The Polar Express, Shark Tale, Shrek 2, The SpongeBob SquarePants Movie, Steam Boy, and Teacher's Pet. Now for me, my favorite film, my favorite Studio Ghibli film in general, is going to be Howl's Moving Castle. I love the story, I love the characters, I love the book, which, if you didn't know, Howl's Moving Castle is based on a book of the same name, and it follows the book pretty closely outside of one or two plot points here and there, but overall, just a nice, fun, fantasy, semi-romance film. Almost kind of equate this to kind of like The Wizard of Oz meets Labyrinth in a kind of way, just to how the characters emote and vibes are. We got some spectacular voice cast there with people like Christian Bale and Josh Hutcherson being of pretty notable parts of them. And overall, just a great, wonderful, magical story. You, however, have probably the more popular opinion.
So mine is The Incredibles. Don't get me wrong, I love Howl's Moving Castle. I only saw it for the first time last night, and I did really enjoy it. I didn't want to say it was my favorite, though, because recency bias. I literally just watched it the night before. The Incredibles felt like watching a movie about my family. Because the relationship specifically between Violet and Dash, how they're just constantly fighting with each other, but the love's still there. Imagine being Violet and having 3 of Dash. Because that was me and my siblings. Just 3 of that little ball of energy constantly around you. We didn't have a Jack. We just had Dash. It just kind of becomes a big movie growing up. Because I don't think I'd ever seen an actual animated superhero movie. And it was so much fun. And it wasn't a superhero movie based off of a property I was already familiar with. So it was this whole new thing. Everybody was so much fun. I feel like I'm saying it was a lot of fun for a lot of these movies, but it really was. It was one of those movies that I had a lot of fun with. But yeah.
So 2005 could be considered a really great year, a really bad year for animated films, depending on who you ask. I think it was decent. Just going over some of the notable releases, we got Bionicle 3, Web of Shadows, Chicken Little, Corpse Bride, Final Fantasy VII Advent Children, Hoodwinked, Kim Possible, So the Drama, Kronk's New Groove, Lilo and Stitch 2, Stitch Has a Glitch, Madagascar, The Magic Roundabout, or as it would be called here in the United States, Dougal, Mulan 2, Pokemon Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, Pooh's Heffalump movie, The Proud Family movie, Robots, Tarzan 2, The Legend Begins, Valiant, and Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Now, for me personally, this was this time that I was really getting into not only CGI animation just as a medium, but also I was really getting into robots and how they were being made and drawing and designing all my own types of robots. So, of course, my pick is going to be Robots. It probably hasn't aged that well with some of the jokes there, but the animation I still think is top tier. This is by Blue Sky Animation Studios. This was like, I think, their second film that they had made and really knocked it out of the park there. I think Robin Williams is great as Fender. Ewan McGregor is great as Rodney. Everybody else is really cool. You got people like Amanda Bynes in there, and great cast, great villain. Some really fun dance and song numbers there, and just a really interesting story about, I guess classism, I guess is what it'd be called. And the helping people out, not because you can make money off of it, but because there's a need to help people. And me and my sister both every now and then do still think of the quote, see a need, fill a need, just going about our day-to-day lives there. I know the movie is not for everyone, including my wife, so she, of course, has her own choice for that year.
To be fair, I understand why people enjoy robots. It was one that my brothers really enjoyed, and I wasn't super into, but we watched it all the time because 3 versus 1, I'd lose. So yeah, it's just the amount of times we watched it made me like it less and less each time. My favorite movie from that year, though, was Corpse Bride. I had a lot of just in that kind of art style. I really enjoyed it. Helena Bonham Carter as Emily was fantastic. The villain of it's pretty interesting. I enjoyed, getting Emily's backstory. It was kind of, weird seeing an animated movie where one of your main characters, the whole reason that they're there to begin with is because they got murdered. The songs were fun. So yeah. So whereas 2005 could be considered a good or bad year, I feel like 2006, outside of a few films, was a really bad year for animation. It was so bad.
So listen off. We have The Ant Bully, Arthur and the Invisibles, Barnyard, Brother Bear 2, Cars, Curious George. This is when, even though it came out last year, this is when it would release in the United States as Dougal, Everyone's Hero, Flushed Away, The Fox and the Hound 2, Happily Never After, Happy Feet, Ice Age The Meltdown, Leroy and Stitch, Open Season, Over the Hedge, Monster House, A Scanner Darkly, Teen Titans Trouble in Tokyo, Tony Hawk in Boom Boom Sabotage, and The Wild. Now, originally, I did have Monster House as my choice, and I've gone into my thoughts on this film and the video game in a previous video about underrated games. While I was looking back through this list here, though, I just realized that I had skipped over probably one of my favorite anime films of all time, Paprika. Which, if you've never heard of that film, I feel like it's kind of like Matrix mixed with Inception. Just a wild out there, but the animation is phenomenal there. Again, it's not going to be everybody's cup of tea when it comes to story, but I feel like just the animation in general is what captured me. So I know you have thoughts on that year as well.
So there wasn't much in 2006 that I saw, let alone liked. I tolerate Cars, so that's gonna have to be my pick because it was the only one that I tolerated.
2007 we would get better films. So we got 5 centimeters per second, Aqua Teen Hunger Force: movie film for theaters, Battle for Terra, B Movie, Beowulf, Cinderella 3: A Twist in Time, Flatland the film, Garfield Gets Real, Persepolis, Ratatouille, Shrek the Third, The Simpsons Movie, Surf's Up, TMNT, and Tom and Jerry and Nutcracker Tale. it was a little bit hard to decide on one film for me that year, but it did end up being Persepolis. It's based on a comic book series of the same name about a Middle Eastern girl growing up. I believe this is the 70s and 80s, when the revolutions was going on there, and so just from her being a kid to being a young adult, and just the many lives she lived through those times. The animation is very interesting style. This was kind of when we started getting movies with different art styles. It is a 2D animated film, and it is a subbed film, so it doesn't have any sort of dub as far as I'm aware of. So if you are going to check that film out, just be aware that there is reading that is needed involved to understand the plot more thoroughly. This is kind of when we started seeing more indie animation companies showing up and slowly inching everybody into liking more than just one animation style.
So mine was Meet the Robinsons. I remember just really enjoying it. I enjoyed the family dynamic in the movie, all the cute little animals. The bowler hat being the actual villain, I thought was pretty interesting. I like how he kind of goes back at the end of it to prevent the villain from taking hold in the future. It was really cute. The comment about, having the big head and short arms repeated over and over again was really cute.
Alright, so now we're in 2008. Notable films came out was $9.99, Bolt, Dead Fury, Horton Hears a Who, Igor, Imagination Land, the movie, Kung Fu Panda, The Little Mermaid, Ariel's Beginning, Madagascar 2, Escape to Africa, Open Season 2, The Pirates Who Don't Do Anything, a VeggieTales movie, Ponyo, Star Wars The Clone Wars, The Tale of Despero, Tinkerbell, and WALL-E. Now, as much as I enjoyed quite a few of those films, especially Ponyo, as I said, still in my loving robots age, WALL-E is the film I pick for 2008. I did go into my thoughts in it a little bit when I was talking about all the tickets I collected. That is the first movie that I ever kept the ticket for and started my 15-year-long collection that's still ongoing to this day of collecting movie tickets. As I said, when nowadays it's considered a classic, but back when the trailer released, it kind of started some comment wars on places like YouTube, because this was the trailer that came out right when Ratatouille released. And so people are like, oh, Pixar's doing a robot movie. Why does the robot look like Johnny Five? Well, they must have run out of ideas. Oh, this looks boring. And then when the film came out, you had people that loved it like I did. Or then you'd have people who are like, yeah, it's a fine film, but there's no talking for like the first half of the movie, and people not enjoying that. Whereas nowadays, I think really anybody you ask, as long as they like animated movies, pretty sure they love WALL-E. It's just a simple, great little love story about two robots that find love in a not a post-apocalyptic Earth, but just definitely an Earth that has been kind of barren for a while. But then WALL-E finds a plant and everything changes. You want to add anything to that? Because I know that was your film choice for this year as well.
I mean, WALL-E really was the only choice. I mean, don't get me wrong, there were some good ones in there, but once you put WALL-E in the mix, nothing else matters. I think it might be really up towards the top of my favorite Pixar movies in general. I really enjoy WALL-E. It was the first time that I remember hearing "Put on Your Sunday Clothes." Because honestly, for some strange reason, even though I was really into musicals, I hadn't heard of Hello Dolly until WALL-E. It was really cute. The little chunky babies just made you want to squeeze them. WALL-E himself was just adorable. I really liked the robot that came up behind him and just cleaned.
Mo.
Yeah. I think he might have been my favorite because he just was so singularly focused on keeping things clean, and it was so adorable.
2009. This was a hard one for me up until, well, you'll know which movie I chose, but I'm going to read down the list first. So we've got 9. We got Astro Boy, Bionicle the Legend Reborn, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, Coraline, Ed, Edd n Eddy's Big Picture Show, Fantastic Mr. Fox, Ice Age Dawn of the Dinosaurs, Mary and Max, Monsters vs. Aliens, Planet 51, The Princess and the Frog, The Secret of Kells, Summer Wars, but my pick is A Town Called Panic. Now, I've done a whole video on my complete thoughts and going over the plot of this film, but I'm going to leave it short and sweet. It's a stop motion film using little figures like the Army Men from Toy Story, and it follows a horse, a cowboy, an Indian that all live together. Visually comedic scenes from beginning to end. It gets really weird and really out there with the story. I don't really want to spoil it. But if you want to know more, go and check out, go to my page, and it's like the first ever classic movie I did was of A Town Called Panic there. I know you have the more one pretty much everybody's probably going to choose.
I chose Up. The older I get, the more I love Up. The more personal Up gets for me. The first 10 minutes of that movie is what made it my favorite movie of the year alone. Don't get me wrong, the rest of the movie is still fantastic. I love the rest of the movie. Russell's adorable. Doug makes me want to get a dog. But the first 10 minutes where you're just with Carl and Ellie and there's no speaking, you get to see how their lives were together, and just the bittersweetness to their lives together that gets you to understand why Carl is the way he is when we get to the meat of the story. Still makes me cry. I believe the song that's there, Married Life, is what our parents walked down the aisle to at our wedding, because we transitioned from Married Life into Boo's Tired when the little kids came out right after. And it's so sweet. It was still like really sweet watching them transition from these little kids and like growing their relationship.
Alright, so we're in the 2010s now.
Woo.
And 2010 had some pretty big films. So going down the list, we had A Cat in Paris, Halo Legends, How to Train Your Dragon, The Legend of Guardians, The Owls of Ga'Hoole, Megamind, The Secret World at Arrietty, Tangled, Toy Story 3, and it was kind of easy for me to pick out of all those films. Don't get me wrong, a lot of them were great, but Toy Story 3 was kind of a perfect film, a perfect sequel. I do see where people are saying that they should have ended with 3. I say differently, but as far as Toy Story 3 goes, I do very much enjoy it. Probably the nicest looking Toy Story film to date, even with Toy Story 4. I think Toy Story 4 just built on 3, but 3 was like the peak in regards to Pixar and animation, what they could do with lighting and fabric and hair and everything in general for that film there. Kind of ties up a lot of the characters' fears and story for the most part, and gives a nice as of the recording of this film, because Toy Story 5 is coming out, gives a nice goodbye to Andy. You have the other big choice. There was 3 big films that here, I think. So there's 2 out of 3 that we're going to talk about here. So you're going to talk about.
I'm going to talk about Tangled. The second I saw that movie, the second that movie was over, I walked out of the theater going, "This is my favorite Disney princess movie. This is my favorite Disney princess, my favorite Disney couple. I absolutely adore every second of that movie. I probably have it memorized almost as well as I have Anastasia memorized. The songs were cute and effective. Again, this is another one where the villain, in terms of personality-wise, was a lot more realistic, and that's what made her effective. I really enjoyed the dynamic between Rapunzel and Flynn. I also really enjoyed the dynamic between Flynn and Maximus. This was another, Disney horse. It's become a thing with Disney. The horses have their whole own personalities, or it's a whole thing. Just to see a Disney princess that wasn't, constantly sure of herself. She didn't, know exactly who she was at all times. She wasn't always the most graceful. She was cute. She was quirky. She doubted herself at moments, and you didn't really see that in a lot of the princess movies growing up. They would doubt other people in the movie. They would doubt other people's intentions, but they were almost always super assured of themselves. And it was kind of comforting to see a Disney princess who didn't have it all together.
All right, so 2011, I feel like, was another kind of meh year. It wasn't a bad year. It was kind of a meh year. So kind of just going over some of the films. We got The Adventures of Tintin, The Secret of the Unicorn, Arthur Christmas, Cars 2, Romeo and Juliet, Happy Feet 2, Hoodwinked 2, Hood vs. Evil, Kung Fu Panda 2, A Letter to Momo, Mars Needs Moms, Phineas and Ferb Across the Second Dimension, Puss in Boots, Rango, Rio, and Winnie the Pooh. But out of all those films, there were some highlights, and Rango is one of them, and that is my choice for 2011. Again, we're just now starting to get into some films with a different type of animation style that's not the normal Disney animation style here. This is a Western with a bunch of mostly reptiles, but also rabbits and possums and other mostly creatures you would find in the desert. It's kind of one of those stranger in a strange land with a mistaken identity, so they all think that Rango, played and voiced by Johnny Depp, is this big town sheriff, whereas actually he's just a little pet that just got knocked off the back of a car. There's this whole issue with the water being drained from the town, so the townspeople are going to die, so they have to go and get more water. There's a couple notable villains there. Lovely to look at, in my opinion. Really kind of borderline between being realistic and being animated without it going into the uncanny valley, in my opinion there. I know you probably have other thoughts on that film.
Okay, so I didn't like Rango at all. Just, one, I'm not a fan of Westerns. Two, I'm terrified of snakes. And there's a snake prominent in that movie. Just, nope, not gonna watch it. It's not my thing. Just not going to. I was also starting to get out of my stage of I'll watch anything with Johnny Depp in it by this point. I was starting to kind of not enjoy a lot of his work by now. And I just didn't enjoy the movie as a whole. That being said, I didn't enjoy most of the movies. I either didn't enjoy them or from the trailer alone decided I wasn't going to see them. So by default, my favorite movie of the year was Winnie the Pooh. I still don't remember much of it. It's just Winnie the Pooh.
So then we go into 2012, where we have a lot better of a pick of animated feature films. Brave, Ernest and Celestine, Frankenweenie, Hotel Transylvania, Ice Age Continental Drift, It's Such a Beautiful Day, The Lorax, Madagascar 3, Europe's Most Wanted, Paranorman, The Pirates, in an adventure with scientists, or as it was called in the United States, The Pirates Band of Misfits, Rise of the Guardians, The Wolf Children, and my pick, Wreck-It Ralph. This was the very beginning, I feel like, of us getting into like this. This was Wreck-It Ralph crawled so that later Sonic the Hedgehog and Super Mario Brothers the movie could run. It is very much those laying the steps down of this is how you make, even though it's not based off an actual video game, it does have a lot of video game tropes and characters in it, and is based on the types of, like, Wreck-It Ralph is a Donkey Kong clone, Sugar Rush is the Mario Kart clone, there's, homages to Doom and Halo and Call of Duty throughout it, as well as other callbacks to other famous video game genres and titles. So this was the very stepping stones of how to accurately portray video game characters, especially when doing them animated. This is how they should look and how the world should feel, and the music and the colors, and if the villain was really cool, and the backstory to that, and just love the story of, like, yeah, you may be born this way, or you may be born that people think of you that way, but that doesn't mean you have to be that type of person. You have the other one of the bigger films. Thoughts?
So yeah, like, you have the more popular choice for the year with Wreck-It Ralph. I have probably the second more popular one. I went with Brave. Again, this is another one that I really enjoyed the art style of. I love Merida as a character. One of my favorite scenes is when the dad is pretending to be Merida so that the mom can get her feelings out and try to work through what she wants to say. And he's doing, like, the typical mocking of a teenage girl. And it's a lot of fun. You could really see that the mom is trying to raise what she thinks is a proper young lady, and Merida's still just like, dude, I'm still a kid. It's that kind of back and forth between your parent wants you to be a grown-up. They want you to act your age when really you are already acting your age, and they just think you should be more mature at the time. So yeah, I had a lot of fun watching that movie, and the three little brothers in it, again, just reminded me of my three little mess pots who were all taller than me at the time the movie came out. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
All right, so 2013, one more decade to go. All right, so some notable films that came out this year were Cloudy with a Chance Meatballs 2, The Croods, Despicable Me 2, Epic, Freebirds, Legends of Oz, Dorothy's Return, Minuscule Valley of the Lost Ants, Turbo, and Walking with Dinosaurs. But as I said in my tickets video, this is my favorite princess film of the current princess films overall, just of currently. But Frozen is my favorite of those films, and a favorite film of that year. Okay, so this film was not advertised as being a musical. So I went in this basically almost blind. It was just taking my sister to go see a movie because we really didn't have anything else to do on winter break one year. So we go, and I am blown away by the story, the animation, the voice acting. This is the first time I'm introduced to Idina Menzel, because I didn't grow up with Wicked or knew anything about it. So this is my first time hearing her voice. Of course, all the songs people have already heard of ad nauseum and are already sick and tired of. I have not gotten sick and tired of really much any of these songs. This little twist at the end, where we find out who the villain is, was pretty big for its time. Yeah, Disney's kind of done that trope a lot since then, and I guess you can even say Wreck-It Ralph kind of did start it, but yeah, it's kind of run its course now. But at the time, it was still a fresh new idea for Disney animation, at least. You want to talk about it as well?
So yeah, it's also my favorite movie. One, because it's just a great movie. And then two, because it became my little cousin, who was my little shadow when she was growing up, her favorite movie just of all time for the longest time. She would come running into my room and just be like, I want to watch Frozen, crawl up on my bed, and we would sit there and watch Frozen and sing along as badly as we could at the top of our lungs. So you've got this 20-year-old and a 6-year-old just mockingly singing along to this movie in a house full of people, so everyone's getting annoyed with us. And then it was also extra sentimental for me because it was the first movie we saw in theaters together.
Yes, it was our second or third date.
So yeah, you came back from that visit to your mom's and said, we're gonna go see this. I still sing along to the soundtrack. Idina Menzel was my selling point for the movie because I enjoy Wicked. My teen years were spent obsessing over Rent. So I do think they criminally misused Kristoff's voice actor. They did not use him enough.
All right, so 2014 was another pretty big year for film. This was when we started getting other companies getting into the animation race, which for before then, we really just had the two. We had Disney and DreamWorks Animation, but now Warner Brothers was jumping back in again, and Sony Animation was jumping back in again. They had started doing a couple films before this, but this was like the big year that they started doing major releases, except for instead of just direct to DVD or direct to VHS. So this year we got Big Hero 6, The Book of Life, The Box Trolls, How to Train Your Dragon 2, Mr. Peabody and Sherman, Penguins of Madagascar, Rio 2, and Song of the Sea. But my personal pick is going to be the Lego Movie. So this is a CGI anime film made to look like a stop motion film. This was, I think, the first voice work for Chris Pratt before he became just like the go-to for every animated film here. It actually works for this film though, because he's supposed to be like your everyday guy, so Chris is just using his everyday voice. Of course, the rest of the cast is great. Will Ferrell as the villain is very fun, and it has a really nice sentimental backstory to his character in the real in real life, because this does have the little bit of live action mixed in there as well. Overall, very fun film. What was funny was Frozen and Lego Movie came out just a couple months apart from it. I believe Frozen was November and then Lego Movie came out in March. So you had people getting tired of both Let It Go and Everything Is Awesome at about the same time. Except for me. I enjoyed listening to both those songs and still do. You have a different choice, of course.
I do. Now, I do really enjoy Lego Movie. I do love that movie, but I went with How to Train Your Dragon 2. One, I really enjoyed the storyline for it. It was a lot of fun to sit there and watch, but it was also a really emotional movie. I enjoyed seeing the continuing character development, specifically for like Hiccup and his friends. Like a lot of the adults, they're as developed as they were gonna get. You get to see like slight changes in them, but getting to see the teens as they develop was really interesting, and how they've grown with their dragons. The end of the movie really affected me. I do remember crying watching the end of the movie.
So 2015. So we got movies Anomalisa, The Good Dinosaur, Home, Hotel Transylvania 2, Inside Out, The Little Prince, Minions, The Peanuts movie, Shaun the Sheep the movie, the SpongeBob movie Sponge Out of Water, and Strange Magic. The Peanuts movie, I believe this was one of the last films that Blue Sky Animation would do. I think they had one more film after this before they got bought out by Disney and the studio got shut down. For the most part, we'll get to the other movie that they released afterwards. But just the way that the style was, where they took the comic strip panels and basically just made them 3D with a very detailed texture to them. So even though it is a 3D CGI animated film, it is for the most part still technically on a two-dimensional plane. And I love it for that, because it just feels just right at home with the rest of the Snoopy and Charlie Brown films and shows and specials there. And of course they got kids to voice the characters, which is what they did with all the Charlie Brown stuff. So it just makes it, just kind of one with the rest of everything there. Yeah, I know some people have complained that they did use some like current songs, so it does kind of make it a little less timeless, but I feel like they used them in a way to where it's not really going to matter. It wasn't pinnacle to the story or anything, and it was still a fun time overall.
So I went with Inside Out. That movie made me feel things. Between sadness and Bing Bong. It took me a while to recover after seeing that movie, because I have, struggled with depression and anxiety in my life. So being able to see that kind of, like what your brain is going through kind of personified, did like really affect me. I did not expect to get as attached to Bing Bong during the movie as I did. Been sitting here laughing at me.
Not laughing, just happily agreeing with you.
But yeah, the movie as a whole really affected me. I don't know how I feel about there being a sequel coming out, especially now they're introducing an anxiety character, so I don't know how I'm gonna feel about that, ironically, with it being a movie about feelings. It's a movie that's easy to identify with, which is why I think a lot of people really enjoy it. It's also probably why it's getting a sequel. I kind of wish they were delving into what they did at the very end of the movie, was showing how other people's emotions look inside their heads. Because right after, hitting you with all the emotions of the second half of the movie, you get right at the very end and they're showing you what everybody's brains look like, and you have the one teenage boy where everything's just going haywire and everything's screaming, girl, 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 girl. And it just, after having a really emotional 45 minutes, it's just something to really lighten it and just make you bust out laughing, and it's one of the more memorable parts of the movie for me.
All right. So now we're in 2016, which had a decent slew of movies. We have the Angry Birds movie, Finding Dory, Ice Age Collision Course, Kubo and the Two Strings, Kung Fu Panda 3, Moana, My Life as a Zucchini, Ratchet and Clank, Sausage Party, The Secret Life of Pets, Sing, Storks, Trolls, and Zootopia. But my choice is going to be The Red Turtle. Now, again, this is another one I've kind of delved a little bit on, and because of the way the story is, I really don't want to spoil it for anybody because it is a very unique story. But the animation is, I know in that video I said cell shaded. I don't think that was the right word to use. It feels more, I guess, watercolor based. It's a very soft toned in regards to color movie. There's no dialogue in it whatsoever. But the basis of the story is a man gets washed up on an island and has to fend for himself and try to figure out how to get off the island. And he meets the titular red turtle. And then again, that's all I'm going to say about it. Go and check out the movie for yourself to find out the rest of the story. People do have different thoughts on what the ending means. I won't go into any of that here, but it is a very beautiful film. You have a much more popular choice for this year.
I do, and it's not because I necessarily really love this movie. It's more because of how much I love our niece. And this is one of her favorite movies. It's Moana. The movie on its own, if I'm just watching it on my own, I'm not a super big fan of it, but there wasn't really a movie from 2016 that I was a super big fan of animated-wise, period. So Moana kind of became the de facto choice. But it's one of those, if you're watching it with somebody who really loves it, it's a lot of fun. The grandmother, the like scene towards the middle-ish end of the movie, makes me cry every time. I think I'm in the minority when I say I am not a huge fan of the soundtrack. There's only like one or two songs from the soundtrack I really enjoy. Shiny makes me want to take my ears off my head. I really don't like that one. But on the opposite side of that, How Far I'll Go, I still sing along to that one. It's still a lot of fun. So yeah, this one's one of those, it's one I love because someone I love loves it so much.
Fair enough. All right, we're in 2017 now. There were a couple of notable films here. So we've got The Boss Baby, The Breadwinner, Captain Underpants, the first epic movie, Cars 3, Coco, Despicable Me 3, Ferdinand, Hey Arnold, the Jungle Movie, the Lego Ninjago Movie, Loving Vincent, My Little Pony, the movie. But the one I'm going to pick is the Lego Batman film. I believe I've said this on a couple of occasions, but I will say it again. I believe the Lego Batman film is my favorite Batman film ever. Just with the amount of little homages and jokes about previous iterations of Batman and the villains and the stories. It's also got some other interesting characters showing up there because it is a Lego movie. This is the same Lego Batman voice as the one from the Lego movie, although I don't think they ever say where in the timeline this is between this and the Lego movie, nor do they say if it's the exact same Batman character as the one that shows up in the Lego movie. Will Arnett does a great job as a Batman voice. When they said he was doing the voice way back in the Lego movie, I'm like, really? That's going to sound really weird, but he actually does a pretty decent job of it. And I still enjoy it. They try to do their own Everything Is Awesome song with
Friends Are Family.
Friends Are Family. It didn't get as earwormy, but is still a fun song to listen to and to dance to. And then you've got probably the lesser known film.
I went with Loving Vincent. It's a very interesting and calming movie at the same time. It's animated to where every single frame looks like one of his paintings. Story for the last few days of Vincent van Gogh's life. So every single frame is made to look like one of his paintings, and that was just gorgeous to see. I do remember getting a little too comfortable in the theater and dozing off for a little while, But for me, that's not always a sign of a bad movie. Sometimes a movie is just so comfortable and pretty that my body completely relaxes and I just go to sleep.
To be fair, the theater we go to has these really nice, almost lazy boy type of chairs that have heat pads in them. So that probably doesn't help in the situation.
Yeah, they're really roomy, made for people with big hips, and they recline. So sometimes a nap is warranted. They kind of take, the most popular version of what people think happened to them, and that's what they run with. But they don't necessarily say that's the only way it could have happened. They definitely kind of leave it open to other possibilities. They kind of hint at other things that could have happened. But for story's sake, they kind of went with the most widely accepted run of events.
All right, so we got 5 years left, people. Thank you for staying with us if you have. Anytime, if you agree or disagree, or you have your thoughts of what film from a certain year you think is best, definitely let us know. But it's always interesting to hear other people's opinions on movies. Or if you agree and want to add on to it, definitely do that as well. So now we're in 2018, where we get movies such as Dr. Seuss's The Grinch, Early Man, Hotel Transylvania 3 Summer Vacation, Incredibles 2, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Teen Titans Go to the Movies. But my choice is going to be The Isle of Dogs. I very much enjoy Wes Anderson films, especially his animated films, which probably isn't saying much because he's only, as of time of recording, only have done 2 animated films. And although I believe Fantastic Mr. Fox is probably the stronger of the 2 films in general, this one kind of has a much more interesting story. No offense to Roald Dahl, but it is about an island where I think this kind of takes place a little bit in like a future where there's a disease going around that is carried by dogs or by most dogs. So they send pretty much every dog to this one island to live on, and we see most of the story through the eyes of the dogs, but eventually a human boy comes along who wants to try to find his dog, and there's also a whole kind of cover-up story that's trying to be investigated about why the dogs are getting sick. And of course, if you love Fantastic Mr. Fox, this is the same animation style and look, and even, of course, the colors and feels and set design and photography of a Wes Anderson film on top of that. And he uses pretty much all the characters that he like and actors he likes using for his films. Or, of course, you got George Clooney and you've got Edward Norton. As at least as 2 of the dogs, and the cast is stacked there, and the animation is just really interesting, especially because these have a lot of fur, and stop motion and fur don't really go together. It's really hard to animate fur. That's why you see a lot of movies nowadays where if they do have animals and stuff in them, they're kind of like sleeked back, or they're cut in sort of way to where the hair is not going to move around, because it's taking stop motion is taking photos, so any little touch you're going to notice that there. But I feel like they did a really good job. You probably have you've got the more popular choice for that year.
I do. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. So when they announced this one, I got really excited because it was going to be the first time we were going to get a movie with Miles Morales in it. And I really do enjoy the Miles Morales Spider-Man storyline. But then I got slightly worried because they said Jake Johnson was going to be voicing Peter Parker's Spider-Man. And I went, wait a minute, Nick from New Girl is going to be Peter Parker. And it works so well. I was really worried because in my mind, Jake Johnson is just Nick Miller. So I wasn't sure how that was going to translate into a Peter Parker. But they made it work, and they made it work to where, this Peter Parker was just kind of done. He was sick of it. He was like, I'm not getting to live the life I want. MJ left me. I don't really want to be Spider-Man anymore anyway. But he gets sucked into this other Spider-Verse, and here's this kid who's kind of at the same place he was when he started his journey, and he's like, oh no. So he takes on the teacher role. And you get to see the differences between how you traditionally see a Spider-Man story happen versus Miles' story. Because, pretty much everyone in Peter's family is almost always on the side of good. And that's why Peter is just such a good person. But you've got, for Miles, the person in his family that he's most connected to is one of the villains for the movie. And you get to see that conflict with him of, he wants to do the right thing and stop the bad guys, but at the same time, one of the bad guys is his favorite person. So yeah, it was a really interesting way to do that. Nicolas Cage as Spider-Man Noir was really fun. Yeah, I really enjoy that movie.
Yeah. I feel like we're going to start getting to a little bit of recency bias here because we're now in the last 4 or 5 years now. So 2019, pretty big year for films. We got The Addams Family, Angry Birds Movie 2, Batman vs. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Children of the Sea, Frozen 2, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, Invader Zim, Enter the Florpus, Klaus, The Lego Movie 2, the second part, Missing Link, Rocko's Modern Life, Static Cling, The Secret Life of Pets 2, Spies in Disguise, Steven Universe the movie, Teen Titans Go vs. Teen Titans, Toy Story 4, and Ugly Dolls. So it was a really hard to pick film. So for this year, actually, we're going to do a little bit different. So we both enjoyed these two films. So I'm going to talk about one, and then Shelby will talk about it, and then we'll talk about it. So I'm going to talk about first is Frozen 2. I feel it was a much stronger film. Just overall story, music, acting, characters than the first one. I even really like the covers that a lot of the bands would do for these songs. And overall, very strong sequel to the first Frozen film. And if they do a Frozen 3, which they will, because Frozen 2 made gangbusters for them, I do hope it goes in the same direction as far as tone, and it took itself a lot more serious, I feel, this time around. And I feel like that was much welcome compared to past Disney animated films of this time here. Your thoughts?
So what I really enjoyed about Frozen 2 was it took what worked in Frozen and enhanced it. So yes, we needed the storyline for Frozen to be what it was, so you get to care about the sisters. So when we get to Frozen 2, you're already used to how they are as siblings. You already know their connection. You don't need anything more. And you get to delve more into their family history. But on top of that, you get to see development between Anna and Kristoff. You get to see how the town has evolved because of Elsa now, being more sure of herself. I like that there's just as many jokes for the adults and moments for the adults as there are for the kids. Like, the kids get to enjoy this really cute story, and the songs are fun. But you get to, Lost in the Woods. And that song was made for the parents watching this movie.
Definitely tell the people that animated that really grew up with the 80s MTV.
Yes, because, there's a moment where they're, emulating Queen that I found really fun. I didn't expect this movie to have me sobbing, but it did during The Next Right Thing. I mean, I was crying loud enough that Ben had to like tap me on the arm and be like, "Hey, shut up."
And so I'll let you start off with the next film.
Oh my goodness. So the next one is Klaus. This, for me, is the same exact feeling that I have for Up. The older I get, the more I love it and the more personal it becomes. This is another one that I did not, just from the trailers, expect to have me audibly sobbing, but it did. It's really effective with how they tell you, like, they show you what happens with Klaus and his wife without actually having to tell you, and that's what makes it hurt more. And then you've got, you know, the little blonde-headed girl. She's so cute and just, she's so sweet, and you just want nothing but the world for her, and that kind of becomes, you know, her and her culture and her people come, and they are helping the good deeds they do for her get her to bring her family and her people over, and it kind of, you know, creates that's where like the myth of the elves for the Santa Claus story comes in. And the whole thing starts because this one dude who is the mailman just wants to get out of town. He has to hit a certain number of letters, so he manipulates the kids into writing letters to Klaus so that Klaus will make them toys so that he can leave. And then he ends up not wanting to leave because of the relationships and the friendships that he's made and the good deeds that he inadvertently does by trying to manipulate everyone to leave makes the town a better place to live, and it's just all around a nice little fuzzy story.
So building off of that, Klaus does a lot of show, don't tell in regards to you figuring out what happened to characters without them having to say, oh, this is what happened to me. You just kind of, you figure it out along with the characters. The mailman, the delivery man, definitely gives off Cusco, Emperor News
Yes.
Grooves vibes, whereas he's voiced by he's somebody totally different, but when I first heard him, I could have sworn it was the same actor that voiced Cusco. The animation is really cool because it is a 2D animated film, and then what they did was they ran it through this program where then the computer would add shadow to every cell to make it look like it was animated in 3D. I think it's really cool, and I really hope that studio goes and does more stuff. But yeah, a great Christmas holiday film to check out. All right, we're in 2020 now. This one had a couple films, kind of a meh year because of, you know...
We all know what happened.
We all know why. But some of the films that did come out was The Croods, A New Age, Earwig and the Witch, Onward, Pupil of Chimney Town, Scoob, Soul, the SpongeBob movie, Sponge on the Run, Trolls World Tour, The Willoughbys, and Wolf Walker. So basically, we didn't see a lot of films this year. I still am trying to catch up on some of those. So we're both going to have to go with Onward. It's fine as a film. It is not the strongest Pixar film, in my opinion. I feel that was a movie that could have spent a bit more time in the writer's room, just ironing out some wrinkles. I felt like there was too many stories going on at once. I really think it should have just been about the two brothers on a road trip. I don't even think he should have had the half-dad thing been a part of it. I really think they could have, instead of, you know, that having to deal with that throughout the movie, I feel like they could have been better as like a diary or like because it's magic, a map or a hologram of just, you know, they find out that the dad's a wizard and these were all the places that he went to growing up or on his journey of when the boys were of that age. I felt that may have been more heartfelt. You could have technically still done the same ending with the one brother being able to say goodbye to the dad, while the other one kind of looks on, and still have that thing where he has the fear of he never really got to say goodbye because of how young he was when he did pass away. He didn't really understand what was going on. He just knew that dad was sick. So yeah, those are just my thoughts. Anything you want to add?
I mean, I will admit I enjoyed it more than you did because I really did enjoy the dynamic between the brothers, and I also really enjoyed the mom. Like, it was one of the few times you have a Disney mom where she's not overbearing or super passive. She is an actual good mom. And she gives them the freedom to do what they need to do, but she also will throw down for her babies.
So 2021, we do start getting more films again. We got The Addams Family 2, Crypto Zoo, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Encanto, Luca, Mad God, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Paw Patrol the movie, Raya and the Last Dragon, Ron's Gone Wrong, Sing 2, Space Jam: A New Legacy, Vivo, and Wish Dragon. But my choice is going to be Marcel the Shell with Shoes On. It is just a lovely little, I wouldn't say slice of life, but very low energy film. And I say that in a good way. Don't mean as like, oh no, this is a boring film. It's just, it has a really nice, calm, slow pace to it. There's basically no action. They're all talking at either at like a regular voice level or maybe at a whisper at most. The animation is adorable. If you don't know, this is based off of Marcel the Shell, the YouTube short series. I believe it's all the same actors and actresses come back to do the voices for that, and it's about Marcel living with her grandma in an Airbnb and them trying to just live their life while knowing that somewhere out there is the rest of their family, but they're not really sure where their family went to. They just gotta, because the last family that lived in the last human family that lived in the house kind of left abruptly. A lot of the family just all of a sudden disappeared one day. And so now the house is an Airbnb, and this, I think he's like a YouTuber or something. He helps with finding Marcel's family, and it's a lovely film. And then I know you probably got the more one of the more popular films choices.
I do. Technically, I have both yours and this one because I couldn't fully choose between them. Marcel is probably the sweetest movie I've ever seen in my life. It's also one of my go-tos if I'm just like sick and I just want to feel comfortable in my weighted blanket with my hot tea. I will put Marcel the Shell on and take a nap. So yeah, if you have little kids and they are sick and you want something that won't get them excited, lay them down with Marcel the Shell and let them chill. But my other one is Encanto. So I cried so many times in Encanto. And at first you were laughing at me crying because I started crying during Surface Pressure. Which is not a song you would think to start crying in. But not only am I the oldest of four, I'm the only girl living in the South. There's a lot there to unpack. So the entirety of Encanto, at different points in my life, I have felt like all three of those girls. I have moments where I felt like Louisa, moments where I felt like Isabel, so many moments where I felt like Mirabelle. Yeah, I cried a lot in this movie, and it was kind of like therapy watching this movie. One, it's wonderfully done. We don't talk about Bruno, such a little earworm, but that's actually my least favorite song in the movie. I think my favorite is Waiting on a Miracle.
So, 2022, we had quite a number of films come out that it was kind of hard for a while to pick out a movie, and then I'll go over the one I did enjoy. But it was a big year because everything was kind of getting back up and running. So we got The Bad Guys, Beavis and Butthead Do Their Universe, the Bob's Burger movie, Chippendale Rescue Rangers, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio, Hotel Transylvania Transformania, Lightyear, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, Strange World, Turning Red, Unicorn Wars, and Wendell and Wild. But my choice is probably going to be a very odd choice. It's called The House. It's an anthology film following 3 different stories in this one house. That is stop motion animation, and it's pretty basically a horror / drama movie. So you've got the first story that is about this family that moves into the house as it's still being built. It's got a lot of weird stuff going on in it, and it follows basically the child girl and her little sister as they're trying to figure out what's going on, because they know something's wrong, they just don't know what. And of course the parents just get more and more into having stuff and trying to make the house look as nice as it is, to where they eventually they become one of the parts of the house there, and the 2 girls have to leave. The second story is about Mouse, realtor, trying to get the place all looking nice to sell it, and he keeps finding bugs, and so it just kind of makes him go crazier. Eventually there is this couple that seem like they want to buy the house, but they just end up infesting it and making it a worser mess. And then the last one, which is the least creepiest of all, is about all these cats that live in this house while I guess the world is being flooded. So this one cat is trying to just be in denial for the longest time that she and the rest of her friends have to leave this house. Where finally, one by one, the friends leave, and she finally does have to leave as well. Overall, just a really creepy but beautiful movie. You've got, again, one of the more popular opinions.
My pick was Turning Red. 1, the movie is a lot of fun. 2, to the people who say the movie is cringy, find me a preteen or an early teen who is not cringy. It doesn't exist. That's just how we all are. Everyone goes through a cringy stage in their life, and they're just kind of highlighting it. You have to go through that stage. You have to go through those moments where you're gonna get most of your embarrassing stories from, so that you can become a fully formed adult and go, oh, so I don't need to do that in public.
All right. And we come to last year. 2023 was a big year in film and a very big year in animation. It was, I knew kind of going in which movie was going to be my number 1, but it definitely was hard to pick from to begin with. So we had Elemental, The Inventor, Nimona, Paw Patrol: The Mighty Movie, Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Super Mario Brothers movie, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem, Trolls Band Together, Wish, but my number 1 pick for that year was The Boy and the Heron, probably in my top 5 Studio Ghibli films. I know originally when they were advertising this film, it was supposed to be Hayao Miyazaki's last film. He is in his 80s though. He has kind of backtracked since, saying this probably won't be his last film. I don't know. The guy could live another 20 years and make another 3 or 4 films. But this one definitely had, we went back to that kind of Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, fantasy adventure story type of frame there. And I gotta say, this, before I say anything else, Robert Pattinson really should think about doing some more voice acting there, because I totally forgot that he was the Heron in this film. Of course, we got other people as well, but he was the standout for the entire cast there. It's about during World War II. His mom dies in one of the terrors of the war, and so fast forward a couple years later, he and Dad move into a nice, much bigger house because he's marrying a new. The dad's remarrying, and they have a kid along the way. He's not really settling into it, and the Heron kind of tricks him into coming to this spirit world because he says he can bring him to his mother who died. And then we kind of just go from there in regards to fantasy adventure, interesting things happening, and it gets very wild and out there from there on in. And then, of course, as usual, you probably got the more popular opinion.
I have the more popular one, but not the most popular one for the year, because I think Mario is still going to be the most popular one for the year. My personal favorite, and it's one of my favorite movies of the year, period, was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. And you knew as soon as Mayday and Hobie showed up that was it, I was done. I was sold. One, Mayday was the cutest little baby. And then Hobie was so fun to watch. I mean, watching Hobie in the movie kind of reminds me of the oldest of my little brothers, and just how he behaves, and he's there for it all, but you're not gonna know just how into it he actually is. I really enjoyed getting to see a harder, sadder side of Gwen. You get more of Gwen's story, and the fact that in this one she's actually letting herself feel the trauma she's been through, which is why you get to see more of her story. I will say the villain of the story, his whole thing kind of feels more of a if you smelt it, you dealt it thing. Like, he's going after Miles for being an anomaly, when it also is kind of hinting at that he is also an anomaly. The Spot was fun to watch. I feel like it's going to get a lot more intense in part 2. Like, a lot more intense. The cliffhanger the movie leaves you on was one of the best cliffhangers. It kind of, for me, was evocative of when the Deathly Hallows movies first came out, and part 1 ends with Voldemort opening up Dumbledore's tomb and taking the Elder Wand. This had the same feel for me, like, oh no, it's all about to go down now. This is really about to take off right here. So I feel like the next one's going to be really intense. So you needed a little bit of I wouldn't say softer, but a little bit more of a breather between 1 and 3. So this one you get more character development, so that when you get to Beyond the Spider-Verse, it can just take off running.
Right, and that's going to be it for the last 30 years. I'm looking forward to another 30 years of animated movies. And thank you for all listening to this, whether you're on the couch or on the table or in your car, listening and watching this as we've talked for, looks like, about 2 hours. And feel free to check out my other videos. If you enjoyed hearing my wife's voice, we do a video once a month going over almost 1,300 movies that we own in regards to different genres. So check out those as well. And until next time, thank you and have a good day. Bye-bye.